Stocks and Bonds is a game by 3M, the same company that brought you the Post-it note. I'm going to spotlight it here today on Legendary Tactics. If you like old games like Stocks and Bonds, check out Noble Knight Games, the sponsor of this video. Noble Knight has an immense collection of board games, miniatures, and various board game paraphernalia to help you round out your collection. If you're interested in the older out-of-print games or the newer stuff, check them out. I'll put the link in the description below. So Stocks and Bonds is a game from 1964 by 3M. As I said at the beginning, the same company that brought you the Post-it note. I think that's their main claim to fame these days. But they were a very innovative company at the time, and they did a lot of different things, including board games. And Avalon Hill ended up buying a lot of their titles, I believe at some point in the mid-70s. And Stocks and Bonds is one of those titles. Like Stock Ticker, if you've played that game, or a more recent game called Stockpile, it's a game where you're buying and selling stocks and bonds, trying to make the most out of the $5,000 you've been given at the beginning of the game. Now, the game itself is not as sophisticated as I expected. The rules are actually quite short, especially if you have any sort of financial background. They'll make a lot of sense to you. First of all, you collect any interest and dividends, then you flip a card and roll the dice to see how the market behaves, and then you sell and then buy stocks and bonds and try and make the most money that you can by the end of 10 turns. In this case, each turn represents 1 year. So the game itself has gotten mixed reviews. I've read some reviews where people say it's actually pretty mid, it's not very interesting, and so forth. And I've read some other reviews that have actually been quite positive. So I think it depends on whether you're interested in financial games in the first place. Now, luck is always going to play a big part of stock market games in general. This game in particular has event cards which announce whether it's a bull or bear market, as well as some events that affect a particular company that's in the mix. Now, you're going to roll a die as well to decide whether each stock goes up or down. It's one die roll, but in the optional rules you can actually choose to roll for each individual stock if you prefer. So the par value of every stock at the beginning of the game is $100 per share. You can split the stock if it goes to 150, in which case you get 2-for-1 shares, or if it goes to 0, of course, it goes bankrupt and you lose all the stocks that you have. Any players of Stock Ticker will probably find that it's a little bit like that. Now, I enjoyed Stock Ticker as a kid, but the randomness was always a bit off-putting, and it was also endless amounts of die rolls. And this one limits that, which I think is a good thing. Now, why I'm interested in this game is I've been on the lookout for a good game about stocks and bonds for a long time. Stock Ticker always struck me as having way too much luck, way too random. It was fun, I guess, but there's simple strategies which allow you to do super well in that game, like always buying stocks when they're above par so you get the dividend, and that can pay off in a big way over time. There's also other games like Stockpile, which I thought was okay, but I don't know, it just didn't grab me quite the same. Now, the one component that really caught me off guard is they actually have essentially a chalkboard in here. You write the prices down in chalk. And I'm so used to seeing these dry erase markers and so forth, which wouldn't have been around in 1964 as far as I know. I like how this game only takes an hour or less to play as well, and I think that that's important. You don't want these games to overstay their welcome. Stocks and Bonds also accommodates 2 to 8 players, and it'd be very interesting to see how it works at different player counts. There's another interesting mechanism in this game which allows players to buy stocks and bonds on margin, which for those of you unfamiliar, it basically means borrowing to invest. Now, this obviously increases the risk factor, and you can either win big or lose big with that strategy. But I like how they included it because it is something that is part of stock market investing today. So in the Avalon Hill magazine, The General, volume 27, number 6, they actually have some additional rules to add more depth and complexity to the game if you feel it's too simple for your taste. Now, I read through the article that presents the rules there. I haven't had a chance to play them yet, but I did think that it added some interesting ideas to a game like Stocks and Bonds. And sometimes if you played the game a few times, you need those extra little variants to keep it interesting. It also has a neat mechanism where you all write down your sales and then reveal them at the same time, and then you all write down your buys and reveal them at the same time. So there's kind of a neat bluffing aspect to it, which is not present in games like Stock Ticker. So it's interesting to see how they dealt with that particular aspect of the design. So I thought I'd spotlight this game today. If you're looking for an introductory game that will teach you about investing, this might not be a bad one to try. The rules are short, the gameplay is relatively short, and it introduces some concepts in an interesting way. So check it out if you can. This is Nato with Legendary Tactics.